Hello beautiful, welcome back to my channel and welcome to this video where we are going to do something that's been very requested, and it is about time that I do, I think, an updated version of this, and that is that I'm going to be ranking all of my Oden's eye palettes for the upcoming Black Friday event. So I'm going to rank them from my least favorite to my absolute favorite, letting you know which ones are my favorites. And if you haven't been here before, if this is your first video here, hello, my name is Angie. I am such a lover of beauty makeup and I especially love more colorful indie makeup, and this is definitely what Oden's eye is. So if you're interested in that, don't forget to subscribe because I actually upload every day until Christmas. I am that meme, and so it begins. Yes, I am officially starting my Vlogmas today on Mondays. I'm going to be uploading every day until Christmas. I usually start a week early because I do not upload the last week of December. I'm usually taking that week off. We'll see how it is this year. That's why I'm starting a week earlier in November, just because I have so many things that I feel like I need to get through before the Christmas is here, But just honestly, I have so many videos that I want to do and I'm super excited. I do get a lot of requests of doing videos like this before Black Friday sale. Oden's eye is having an amazing Black Friday sale per usual, and what's really good with the Oden's eye sale is that you can stack my code Angelica and you will get another 10% and like an additional 10% off the sale. This will work on all their sale deals except one, and that is actually, and let me show you that quickly when we'll talk about the Black Friday deals, and that is that my palette, the Hella palette, this one is actually going to be 40% off. We have just a few left and we are selling out the last ones that we have at 40% off. This is the last time you are going to see this palette. I cannot repeat this or be more clear about this so that nobody misses this. The Hella palette is about to sell out. We are getting rid of the last ones on sale. After Black Friday, this will no longer be available. You will no longer be able to get a hold of this. So if you had been thinking about it, or maybe you recently discovered me or recently discovered Oden's eye, this is the last chance during this Black Friday sale. Just letting you know, that's where we are. And obviously when we're doing this ranking, obviously that is my number. I mean, I did that palette, I made that palette, I decided that palette. Obviously I put in my favorites, and obviously I think that that is the best palette. I would be crazy to say otherwise, and of course I am a little bit biased in that one. So I won't be ranking this one, but we can all like keep in the back of your head that unofficially this is my favorite. So the Oden's eye Black Friday sale will be from November 25th to November 27th. So it will be for 3 days. I will put the time zones and everything down below so that you don't miss it. Remember to use the code at checkout so that you can get an additional 10% off. I will leave that down below as well. You'll be able to get 50% off the Elva eyeshadow palette, 40% off the Gourmande 2 collection, which I will be talking about in a bit, 40% off the Elva 2 collection, 50% off all lip products, 40% off my palette, the Hella palette. That's the only one you cannot stack a code though, so 40% is what's off that palette, and then 40% off the Freya collection. So, and when I say 40% off the Freya collection, of course that will be 50% when you stack a code on that. Just so we're all clear on that. I'm gonna start at the bottom and I'm gonna work my way to the top. I will say that, and this is just a quick, before I get into the ranking, I know I've been doing this for too long, I'm gonna speed up. I believe that the formula has improved over time. I think that they have done some tweaks to their formula so that it has gone from good to great. And also remember, sometimes when it comes to formulas and when it comes to stuff like this, we all have different tastes and different preferences. This is one of my favorite formulas. I think it is very pigmented. I think that it is buildable, but it also is like you can start with the darkest color, you can start with the lightest color. I think that this is a really good formula. I think the shimmers are very sparkly and I think that they lay on really good on the lid. If you pack them on without spraying your brush, or with just using a brush, or without using a glitter glue, or without using a glitter glue, or just using your finger, you might get some fallout. That doesn't bother me as much because I feel like they look really beautiful on the lids. I do not have any fading or creasing problems with this formula. It's just, according to me, a really beautiful formula. And one of the things that I think Oden's eye makes really good with their palettes is that they will include several different formulas in each palette, and we're going to be talking about that as well. I'm actually not wearing Oden's eye today because I'm in the process of reviewing some palettes from Nomad Cosmetics. I'm wearing doing the Ice on Fire. I will actually link the things that I have on my face down below. There should be a tutorial live on this look as well. It's coming as a short here on YouTube. It's also coming on my Instagram and my TikTok. I am going to be doing a ranking on Nomad as well. A lot of people have asked for that as well, so I'm going to do my best to fix that as quick as possible also. Okay, I'm sorry that that took so long. I had some, I was going to say I had some gatekeeping to do. I do not gatekeep good makeup. Let's start at the bottom. This is the Elva 2 Mini Forest palette. I think the formula of this is really good, and I think the main, oh my god, can we get rid of the hair? Oh, thank god. Oh, so amazing. I think that when it came to a couple of the earlier palettes from Oden's Eye, I feel like they were doing the same thing as a lot of mainstream brands do, which is that they were not as adventurous or maybe as bold with their color choices. Because I feel like this palette has really good quality, but it has a mid-tone turquoise, a mid-tone brown, two like mid-tone shimmers, and then this like brown-green duo. These are not bad colors by any like means, and if you like this color story, I bet you would like this, but this is just a little bit more weak in the color selections when we come to their newer palettes. And I feel exactly the same about this one. This is the Mini Ocean palette. This one had a dark blue, and this is more like a traditional shimmer, and it is a little bit more on the dense side, so you can actually use this in your outer corner and create some darkness, which I really appreciate. But same here, it's a little bit more predictable in the color choices. It's like blue and neutrals. I mean, who hasn't seen that before? Nothing wrong with the formula though, and I feel like these palettes were a sign of what's to come. You could tell that they were getting into good formulas, they were getting into good colors, but they weren't 100% there yet. This palette, I've actually had this palette at, if I had ranked this a couple of years ago, I would have put this a bit higher because this is the Skuld palette. If I'm saying these names, which you think is weird sometimes, it is that Oden's Eye is a Swedish indie brand and I am Swedish. Skuld means debt. And so I'm pronouncing it the way that I would, because these are Swedish words. I hope that this makes sense. This is an all shimmer palette. This one is like a satin duochrome almost. I think you can see a little bit. These are all beautiful colors, and I remember myself saying something along the lines of like, if you were looking for an all shimmer palette with like those really nice formulas, this could be it. And I still believe that, but I think after this year, 2022 and also 2021, a lot of indie brands are coming out with really honestly extraordinary all shimmer palettes. So I cannot with a good conscience say like, this is the shimmer palette you should invest in if you want special formulas, because I feel like there are others, not necessarily with like better quality, but maybe more exciting duochromes and multichromes. And I think that if you would want to invest in an all shimmer palette, I would maybe steer you in that direction instead. I did have a video on Sunday where I was talking about like Black Friday deals. I think that Oden's Eye has probably the best Black Friday sale if you're interested in indie brands. Like, it does not get a lot better than this. So if you were even the slightest bit interested, this is the best sale that they're gonna have for a year until next Black Friday. But I feel like there might be other indie brands that do an all shimmer palette a little better. Out of these small Elva 2 palettes, this is my favorite, and this is the one that I used after reviewing it as well, and this is the Mini Sky palette. This one has a dark brown matte and a mauve matte. These both have a little shimmer in them, but honestly I don't really care about that. It's nothing that I really think about on the eyes. And then it has this beautiful almost like purple turquoise duochrome on the side here, and these together create a really beautiful look. And I think this is the most versatile and well thought through color story of these mini palettes. And again, there's nothing wrong with these formulas. They're really, really beautiful. I just think that they have done way better than this since then. And the reason maybe why some of these are at the bottom is because these were also some of their, I don't want to say older palettes, but a little bit older palettes. I think that this one is the oldest palette that I have though, and this one is one of the ones that are on a good sale during this Black Friday. You can get a lot of money off, and this is the original Elva palette. And I feel like this is before they changed their formula. And there is nothing wrong with this palette. This is a good palette, but it's not as amazing as the formula has progressed to over time. So I totally understand. And this also, you can see with some of the other ones, they're changing pan size with time as well. And I will say that I think that this is a very interesting neutral palette with a twist, because it has a yellow, and these are all like mauve neutrals. And some of these shimmers are really nice duochrome toppers. This one is more of a traditional shimmer with like an opaque base. You could see where the brand was going with this palette, and you could see the progression from this one to where we are now, because even here they're starting to experiment with different formulas. Like they have metallics, they have toppers and duochromes and mattes, and it's like 3 or 4 different formulas. I would say 4 different formulas in this palette, and already you could tell that they are experimenting and trying new things. I do think though that even though this is a nice formula, the formula is incredible now, and I would maybe point you in that direction instead. Apparently my dog is here. Oh, you're very cute. You're very cute. What? Yes, you're very sweet. Yes, mommy loves you. Mommy loves you very much. I don't really know. Do you want to be a part of this? Oop. You're sliding. Hey, yes, you're very sweet. You're very sweet. No, we don't need to be French kissing, okay? No French kissing. Yes, you're very sweet. This is the next palette I'm going to talk about, and this is the Elva 2, the big palette. So this is like the Elva 1, and this is the Elva 2. Are we done? Are we done? Was I boring? No French kissing? Oh my god, tearing this place apart. So this is what this one looks like, and this is where I felt like they were... When I got this palette, I gasped, because I got this on Sentence PR, and I gasped, and I was like... They're really embracing the color, because I remember that these and a couple of these mini Elva too, they came out at the same time if I'm not mistaken, and I was like, oh, they're embracing color. This is going to be one of those indie brands that are embracing color, and I was so excited. With that being said, I feel like it was after this palette that they went from the good formula to the really good formula, and then they upped it even one more after that release after that. There's nothing wrong with this formula. I still think that this is really good. It does have 2 pressed glitters though, and I feel like they got so much constructive feedback on that one that people really didn't want to see pressed glitters in palettes. So this is the only palette that they have that has pressed glitters, but these colors are really beautiful, and the looks that I have done with this has been really nice. The darkest color again in this palette is this like almost satin metallic blue, but I was able to use that in my crease, and honestly I really did like the look. But this is the palette where I was realizing also this like brand really wants to play with color. They really want to like create something new. I was super excited about that, and I feel like this was the palette where I really fell in love with the brand and realized the potential of like what this brand can become and what they are now, because like they are definitely one of my favorite indie brands. This is the Saga of Freya Chapter 1 Tears of Freya. They had a Freya collection that came out, I think it was last summer, and this is one of the palettes that came out. I really like this haul because these are meant to be like books. So it says on the like book cover here. I think this was really a cute idea, and this is when they started putting in, I think, the rectangular or these kind of pants, because they've had these kind of pants in a couple of palettes, and then they evolved it into like you'll see. Me trying to describe geometry, I'm like apparently I don't know shapes. The one reason why this one is a little bit lower, because this one has really beautiful colors. It has like these bright colors here, it has a couple of duochromes, but there's no deep color at all in this palette, and instead there are 2 browns. And if you didn't know, I like neutrals, but I don't love neutrals, and if I get to pick between something colorful or something neutral, I'm gonna pick something I mean, look at how I look today. I'm gonna pick something colorful, and if I get to choose between a mid-tone color and a deep color, I'm gonna pick the deep color. So for me, if this brown had been a really dark brown, I think that we would have been singing a different tune, but every look that I did with this one was just a little mid-tone, and I prefer something that's deeper, and I feel like that is something that they have really captured with their future palettes. This is Verdandi. This came out with the Nords collection, and that collection came out actually before this collection. This one, is this a neutral palette? No, it isn't, because it has a bright red. But this bright red, it is such a bright tomato red. It is so beautiful, and you actually can do quite a lot of different looks with this. And I really feel like with this Norns collection, with the Norn, I already fell in love with them when it was the Elva Nov24th collection. And when they came out with the Norns collection, I was really like, oh, so now everybody else is gonna fall head over heels with this brand too. Because this is when I truly felt like they were landing into something that was really gonna translate to an even wider audience. Because I feel like this palette is like a 6-pan palette where you can go warm, you can go neutral, you can skip the red and just... Do you see what this palette transformed into if I cover this one up? Did you see how this just transformed? I really like this color story and I have used this quite a few times. It's such a good travel palette and both of these shades in the middle are really pretty iridescent shades. Let's go back to the Freya collection. So this is the Saga of Freya and this is the big palette. And this was like a bigger book where it had like one on the side here, and here you have this dark burgundy shade, and these shades are actually super pretty. This is like a pewter, almost silver, and then you have this like super nice sparkly burgundy purple one, and these mattes up here just created a really... I feel like this palette created so many fun looks, and on the other side you had this bright green, bright orange, you had 2 duochromes and a couple of neutrals, plus again what I really love, a really deep cocoa brown. And plus this is like a mustard. I thought that this color story was really pretty. This wasn't my favorite palette from that collection because I felt head over heels for another one, but I still thought that this was a really beautiful palette, and I thought that it was a really nice representation of the 2 separate palettes that they had as well in the collection. If you wanted to get both the color stories but just in a bigger palette, I thought that this was a really nice one. Okay, so the first time that Oden's Eye did collabs was not with me. They actually did some collabs before me, and these collabs were with Judy, Tina from the Fancy Face, and Annette from Annette's Makeup Corner. So the first palette I have here is the Tina... So the first palette I have here is Judy's palette, which is the Red Dragon palette. And the only reason why this is here, because the quality of this is incredible, is that this is more of a warm, neutral palette. And again, like I said, if I get to pick between something that is neutral and between something that is colorful, I will always pick the colorful option because that's just how I am. This palette is no longer available though, but I will say this quality is incredible, and you can see it has those rectangular pans here as well. And I feel like with this palette, the Freya collection, and with the Norns collection, that is where I truly felt like, oh, this formula has gone from good to great. And this collection was absolutely no exception. This Dragon palette is just such a beautiful palette. And honestly, it is a neutral palette with a twist because you have a bright red, you have a bright green, and this beautiful like duochromy green here. But again, this is no longer available, but maybe it's like see this as a sign as that when Oden's Eye does collabs, they do them really good, and I can only speak from my own experience. They're a really good brand to work with as well, so you know that the collaborator is being taken care of as well. So this is my favorite palette from the Freya collection, and this is the one that is the cat with the golden carriage. This one has some really fun colors, and this has something that I really like in a palette. I like when a palette goes from really light to really dark in both mattes and shimmers, and that's what this palette has. Plus the pop of color is actually an orange and not a blue, not a green. It is a green palette with a really dark green, a really light green, a couple of really beautiful shimmers. This is a wonderful topper and a pop of orange. If you want to have an all orange look, you can, and then this color that you can deepen up the orange with if you want to. I had really fun with this palette. I really like the looks that I've done with this palette. And yeah, this is my favorite palette from the Freya collection, the cat with the golden carriage. I really like it. This is the next collab palette that I'm going to talk about, and this is the Tina palette, which is the Hummingbird palette. This is almost like a twist of a rainbow palette, but it has a couple of almost grungy neutrals thrown in here as well, and there is a really nice multi-chrome here. I feel like not with this palette in specific, they had another palette where they did multi-chromes for the first time, but since these palettes, they have had multi-chromes in every palette that they have done. So all 3 of the collab palettes had a kind of a multi-chrome. I didn't see any in the Freya collection, but in the big Norns palette that is coming up, they also had one. This was a really beautiful palette. I do appreciate we have three darker colors here. This is a pastel blue that is, I love something that's really light. This is a little bit not more on the sheerer side, so I wasn't able to like pack this on, but I still appreciate this color story a lot. I thought this was a really pretty palette. Now we're getting into the Norns palette. This is the big Norns palette. Oh, the way that I love this palette and the way that I've had so much fun with this palette, and this one is the multi-chrome that you see here. It is one of those green to gold pink, and when I saw that, I know that I thought to myself, oh, they cracked the code. And like I said, when the Norns collection came out, I realized that this brand is gonna go from a brand that I really love to a brand that's a lot of people are gonna really love, because this palette had so many different formulas. You had metallics, you had duochromes, you have multichromes, you have satins, you have mattes, you have this topper shade here. I think they really brought something with this, and they really showed people we're not coming to play when we are releasing a palette. It is exciting, it's different, it is just something a little bit out of the ordinary, and I really feel like they did that with this palette. Really like this whole theming and everything as well. And they still had the round pans, so the rectangular pans they had the first time with the Freya palette. But I think this is such a pretty palette. That last row of metallics, out of this world. This is going to be the last mini palette, and I have been singing the praises of Urd for so long, or as I would call it, Urd. And this is one of the Norns, and I really like this palette. I've had so much fun with this palette. I brought this on several vacations. I've worn this to date night. I think that this palette, like, you can do an all green look, and if you cover like, how do you... I'm worse. If you cover this green up, if I do the same as I did with the red, you can see that this palette is just taking a more cool tone route. And I will say, this is very pigmented, but it's also very blendable. So you actually can, if you use this one with two different brushes, if you use it with a more fluffy brush and just put it in the crease a little bit more lightly, and then a bit more of a dense brush in the outer corner, you can get a plum look with this just this one, and use these two shades, and there's no greens at all, and you will get a totally different look with this palette. I think this is an incredibly versatile palette. It goes both from plums and neutrals to greens, and a warm green and a cool green, which are really cool together, but also really cool if you use one and not the other. I just think this is a really good palette. I've had a lot of fun with this one, and it's one of my favorite small palettes. It's just a really nice palette, and I really appreciate this palette, and I think the quality is really nice. Now we're getting into Annette's palette, and this is Giant Wolves, and this is the collab palette that she did the first time that Oden's Eye was doing a collab. Again, this is also not available anymore, and the reason why this is on top of the other ones is because me and Annette have a very similar taste when it comes to makeup, and a very similar taste when it comes to color preferences. We like these like saturated and just really colorful shades together with like she has a black here and then almost white. These are just very similar to what I like, and you can see there is a multi-chrome down here. I just thought that she did really good with this palette, and something that I really appreciate with this palette is that there is a very cool toned thing going on down here, but then you have three warm tones on top, so you can actually go in a totally different direction if you want to. A little bit more of a warmer swampy green, an olive green, and then this like, it is like a white vanilla duochromes. I think that this palette is really nice, and again, for the people in the back, when Oden's Eye does a collab, they tend to do it really good. Okay, I think a lot of people are gonna be upset about like my tops. Let me actually move these so I can have these up, because I have to. I know that these sold out. This is one of the holiday palettes of this year. This is the Christmas Eve palette. They did these kind of pans for the first time in my palette, because they were asking me if I wanted to have the rectangular pans, and I said that I would prefer to have a 16 pan palette, and that's why they took out and made these almost squares. There you go. square pants, and I just think that these are so cool. It looks so neat, it looks so nice. This is a really beautiful color story, and normally I am head over heels for all of these kind of cool tones, but I will say I love the other palettes that I'm gonna mention even more, and I have been so into warm tones lately. I know that this is discontinued, and I know they said they're not restocking it. I mean, this is a very time-sensitive palette. They did sell out of this quite quickly, and then they had a pre-order up, and the pre-order sold out, and they have said that they're not restocking. That's the way it is sometimes, especially with indie brands. They cannot be sitting on this kind of stock after Christmas. That would just be eating up too much into their budget. At the end of the day, they are an indie brand. But now I'm gonna mention my favorite palette that is still available. And I never tell you ever what to buy and what not to buy. But if you are making an order from Oden's Eye, may I suggest this one? And of course, I would suggest my palette. I think that this is the best palette of 2022. I mean, let's be honest. But if I'm not being biased and recommending my palette, the Gourmande 2 came out this year. This is the palette that came out after my palette. This also has the rectangular pants, and I love this. I think it's so beautiful. This color here is the color of my dreams. I love a really yellowy orange. I just think that that is so pretty. This one is just, again, a new take on the rainbow. It is like not yellow, but kinda. Not red, but kinda. Not like purple, but kinda. Like, not like, this may be the closest to blue. Not green, but kinda. It's just a different take on a rainbow palette, and it has duochromes. It has like really beautiful formulas. It has this matte black. It has a pastel blue. And the packaging is stunning. I cannot recommend this one enough. This is the one that is, I don't think, limited edition. This is the one that's not sold out. I think this palette is wonderful. If you want to start anywhere with Oden's Eye and you're seeing this video after maybe even my palette is sold out, because again, of course, this is my favorite, I would say start here. It's really beautiful. And with that being said, this is going to be number one. Well, after Hella, but this is going to be number one. And again, I'm so sorry, but it's not available anymore. This is the Merry Christmas palette. This is what she looks like. I think that this is beautiful. There is a multi-chrome up here in the corner that is a lime green to like a pinky peach. You can see it's just super, super pretty. I really think that they did something with this palette. It's like reds and oranges. There's a couple of neutrals. There's some sea foam, and there's a dark green and a mint. It's just really pretty shades. And this is also like a topper duochrome that's more on the neutrally side. It's like a tan base with like a mint shimmer. Should not be talking about like how much I love it, but I wanted to like just, again, include the palettes even though they are discontinued, because I want you to see that when it comes down to it, my favorite palettes from Oden's Eye are the newest palettes overall. Because I really feel that with the Norns palette, I feel like that is when their quality went from like good to great. And then I feel like they worked even more with the pan sizes and with the color combinations. And I feel like they have really landed in something that's like really them. Really colorful, but still a bit grounded. It have some interesting color stories. They bring something new with each collection, and I'm just super excited to see what's coming next as well. And I will say, I don't have any palettes from Oden's Eye that I dislike. I like all of these palettes, but I will give you a heads up that in the upcoming declutter, I will get rid of a couple because I don't personally reach for them anymore. But I don't think that any of the palettes that I have are like awful quality or like stay away from these, because I don't have any palette like that from Oden's Eye. So I think that you wouldn't go wrong, to be honest, with any of these if I'm showing you something and they're like your favorite color story. But I will say, if you're gonna start somewhere, start with this one. Or maybe this one, if you don't own it, because it is about to be sold out and gone forever. Let me know your favorite Oden's Eye down below. Let me know what you would like to see from Oden's Eye in the future as well. They do have some really beautiful other stuff as well. There's single highlighters and there's single blushes. The one in the round compacts, they're absolutely amazing. Like, they're so good. Their eye pencils are really nice too. I'm actually wearing the green from Oden's Eye on this side and one of the blues from Oden's Eye on this side today, in case you were wondering. Again, check the description box for more info about the sale. Happy Black Friday sale shopping. And if you're not shopping the Black Friday sale, that's totally fine too. I wish you the best of luck with your low buy and your no buys, and I hope this video was entertaining anyways. Don't forget to subscribe though, because I'm going to be uploading, like I said, every day until the 25th of December.